Okay, so with the confirmation of Xuan next patch, I actually want to talk about her, and if you need her, first and foremost, no, you don't. I know Mono Quantum looks like it's going to be a great team. I know Sealy is a great character. I know QQ is a great unit, especially if you have her built up, especially if you have her E6. But being blunt, as much as there are no reactions in HSR, at least compared to Genshin, as much as a character like Silverwolf with Eidolons or without is a great unit, I don't think it's worth summoning for any character specifically just to get one team comp to work, because that is all Xuan is, a mono quantum based unit. Her value shoots up because of mono quantum, but if you don't have Silverwolf, if you don't have Zeely, if you can't make a mono quantum team, then it's a bit iffy. For me, I was able to pull on this banner before getting Luca. I had to go 10 after Kafka to get Luca. I didn't even want Kafka all that much, but Luca was the main priority. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because for your mono quantum team, you have Zeely, you have Silverwolf, you'd want Lynx as your healer, and then Xuan as your primary preservation character. And the problem with this is, you can go forever and not get Lynx, so your mono quantum team is already a bit iffy. But hypothetically, let's say you really wanted Xuan as your preservation unit, and you were going to slide in Bronya anyway, or you were going to slide in somebody else. Well, the issue and problem with this is, Gepard would be better. As much as I hate to say it, Gepard as a character, he doesn't deal any damage. And I understand a lot of individuals want Xuan to be really powerful, but the problem is, and I want to specifically focus on, is damage mitigation is god-awful. Like, I understand, maybe out of 100,000, maybe if you have, like, let's look at Sealy. If you have 2,700 HP on your Sealy, mitigating that by 50% if you were to take a hit that's 3,000 damage is great. Yeah, sure, you survive, but you've only survived for one other hit. A Gepard shield provides you with, technically speaking, more survivability and more HP, because it basically doubles the entirety of your HP because the shield itself has HP. And why I'm making such a big deal out of this? It's because if Xuan is a damage mitigation character, and that's what it looking like it looks like she just mitigates the damage you takes and then technically speaking reverses it, she's a lot more like somebody like Blade, or theoretically, somebody like Bailu. And the point I want to make with that is, she's not as flexible. Yanqing won't work with her. If you're a Yanqing main like me, you may as well leave. She doesn't work with him because he can't take damage at all. That's why Gepard is so good. And the problem with Xuan is, if you were to take, like, anybody who's been farming, let me go to a random character, anybody who's been farming the Broken Kill set, know that the Simulated Universe World 7 boss is kind of dumb to fight. Like, let me be clear, it has a big nuke attack, and if you're facing off and having an entire team that's essentially surviving on damage mitigation alone, they can still die. And the problem with that is, Xuan can fall. She doesn't look like she's going to have a trace like Gepard where, you know, she can revive, even if it's once per battle, and even if hypothetically speaking, she can do a revive for your entire team once per battle. The problem is, most battles, especially in MOC, last multiple waves, and if you die during the second wave, or die during the third wave due to a nuke attack, Xuan's value drops immensely because she loses the core of her kit, which is essentially around reviving and reversing your team's HP. If she's not going to stop you from taking damage, then damage mitigation could just be otherwise supplied by somebody like Bailu. And the reason I want to bring this up is that Bailu's entire kit revolves around, primarily at least, the Invigoration, which restores HP each time you're hit. And Invigoration is so useful because you only need to use her burst, and then the Invigoration keeps you alive for the next turn. And you can start this off before battle with her technique. And so when I'm looking at that, when I'm comparing somebody like Xuan to that, the question is, does she bring more value to the table than a Bailu? Does she bring more value to the table than a Gepard? And if the answer is no, why would you pull for her? Mono Quantum is great. Yes, it means that Silverwolf will always implant a quantum weakness, but let me be clear, that doesn't mean all that much. Weakness breaking is fine. Mono Quantum is fine, but if Xuan is more dependent on constellations or eidolons to be great, she is not worth the summon, especially over a Gepard, because many of you may be inching closer to that point where you can pick a character, and he's really good. And that revive mechanic, where he can essentially restore back his ultimate, or a revive, where is it, this one, where he gains 100% energy, that means that even if he falls, he can immediately give your entire team a shield, and the higher you level this, the more HP he starts out with. In a lot of scenarios, he is your entire Yanqing team, if you build him with Yanqing specifically, is basically dependent on Gepard, and it's really, really good, especially with his light cone. So I want to bring attention to that fact because I don't think a lot of individuals can make proper use of this. And I know I can be wrong about this. But I've been discussing this with other individuals who were previously super excited about Seele with Silverwolf and Lynx and Xuan, and she's just not there because damage mitigation isn't nearly as good as damage elimination or outright healing. And if Lynx is on the same banner, Lynx is going to be a more universal character. I don't want to say it like that, but I think a healer is obviously going to be more universal. And if you pick up a Japard, he's more universal. Because even if you don't have his light cone, even if you're not building him out with Yanqing, even if you don't have Eidolons, Japard can freeze. And as much as nobody wants to admit it, when you need to, that freeze can really help out because they don't take action. And if a boss is about to do a nuke and you can get that freeze to pop his ultimate, you're in a better spot for it. And so the problem with Xuan is entanglement already isn't necessarily the best. Yes, it stops turns, and yes, theoretically speaking, it can do high damage, but freeze in a lot of scenarios can be better off. And if she's a damage mitigation character, which once again is looking like she's going to be, she doesn't have nearly the same value as a damage elimination character because you could just slap this on or this onto somebody else. Hypothetically speaking, let's say you don't want to slap this on. This increases your resistances of all your allies, so it's already vaguely equivalent to that. And if she's on banner with a healer, well, why wouldn't you go for something like a Seele, Silverwolf, a healer, and then a buffer like Bronya? Or hypothetically, just slide in Japard and you're set. And I understand you won't have Japard. I understand a lot of people don't. But Xuan, to me, looks like a character who has really good designs, really good ultimate animations, really good skill animations. But as a base character, her kit is kind of I think the real issue is I don't want this to be a Jing Yuan situation where a character seems really good and is really good in their one niche, which is Mono Quantum. And as of right now, we don't have enough characters to justify someone or anyone really pulling for a niche team composition. You should be pulling for flexible units that work in multiple areas. Kafka, the Hillary character, she can work in multiple areas. Bronya, great, can work pretty much any team. Silverwolf, the same vein. I don't think you should be pulling for units based on how much value they can provide to one team only. That's my issue with Xuan. She seems like she's built for Mono Quantum and not necessarily everyone else. Because if we're comparing her to everybody else, Blade, he wants to be on lower HP, yes, but he also needs a healer anyway. If you're talking about Jing Yuan, doesn't matter if he's hit. Same thing with Kafka. Yanqing doesn't want to be hit, doesn't want to take damage. Seele doesn't want to take hit because either way, it technically can reduce her speed. And so when I'm looking at this, when I'm looking at a character, when I'm looking at Xuan in particular, as a preservation unit, she needs to either have more taunts value than the MC's taunt or have something like it, or have damage elimination like Japard. And based on what I know, it's looking like she can increase her crit damage and crit rate, like something like a Bronya, or something like Yanqing automatically does. But that doesn't matter. I don't want to say it like that, but it doesn't matter if she buffs you up if she doesn't do her job as damage mitigation / elimination. I can slide in a buffer. I can slide in a Yukon. I can slide in a Bronya. I can slide in a Ting Yun. If I want those buffs, I can get them in other ways, even defense down, especially with Pella being on the banners. But I want a preservation unit to preserve my team and keep them alive. And if she doesn't do that, why would I pull for her? And why would you? Mono Quantum can be great, but I don't think she's necessary for it. I think as of right now, she's the only option you have. And if she doesn't provide the same ability and survivability as a Japard, as a Fire MC arguably, she's not good enough to summon. Especially when her partner and the next banner after will be Dan Feng. Because Blade is a destruction character who's quite good. And Dan Feng may be great, especially if you want to run imaginary based teams, because Yukong already gives 12%. You can slide this over to something else like Planetary Rendezvous to get more damage percent. You can go with Route to Slow, and you have Lodcha if you pulled for him, so you can run a mono imaginary team that's legitimately good. So why would you pull for a character for a arguably worse mono-oriented team? I don't know. I don't think mono teams will be all that. I think there are ways to buff it. Obviously, you can go with light cones like Planetary Rendezvous. But as of right now, I don't think they're worth it. And if Xuan is a character you're considering, I honestly say just wait a little bit. Kafka isn't, don't get me wrong, I don't think she's A tier or anything like that. But Kafka isn't awful. And I think she's less restrictive than Fu. But either way, give me your thoughts down below. If you disagree, perfectly fine. I just wanted to get my opinions out there before anyone summons, even though we have like 10 days left of the banner. So I'll see you next time. Goodbye.